Muy buenas tardes. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and thanks for being with us today on this new version of the Lloyd's Latin American and the Caribbean Academy. Today, we have with us Sergio Guisao Mateo, who has a degree in Business Administration and Management from Universidad Autónoma de Madrid. He has more than 12 years of experience in the insurance sector. I started his career as a professional, his professional career as in March as a broker in Spain, and he later moved to London to become an energy underwriter at GCube, the underwriting agency. So Sergio is today with us, and I'm delighted to have him join us on this presentation. Uh, Sergio, the floor is yours whenever you're ready.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining this new presentation. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about these exciting times for the industry, for the renewable energy industry, and also for giving me the opportunity to explain why I think renewable energy is a great opportunity for the insurance industry as well. Thank you, Daniel, for the introduction. As you mentioned, I started my career 12 years ago as a broker. I've been an underwriter for the last 6 years, and then I've been able to see how the industry has changed massively, not only about technology. I remember when I started, the turbines were less than 1 mega, and today we insure machines of more than 6, but also how the industry has been able to specialize themselves to make sure that we cover all the angles of this amazing industry. So the way I will start talking about the industry is by talking very briefly about the changes in the last 20 years. I don't want to give you too many numbers, but I think it's important to see the development. I will split the numbers in two, let's say, the evolution from 1990 until 2019, and then the numbers this last year in 2020 and this year in 2021. And more importantly, how will be the industry in the next 3-5 years time? Because everybody, insurers, reinsurers, brokers, clients, advisors, will see opportunities coming from clients. And I think it's good that everybody industry is ready to advise clients about how to do things in open markets. So if we think about the supply, the total energy supply in terms of renewable energy in the last 20 years, the average annual rate was about 2%. That means that solar PV, which is by far the lead technology in renewables, the growth was over 38% compared with 25% coming from the wind energy. The technologies, excluding hydropower, which is the more common technology in Latin America, accounted for 14% of global electricity generation in 2019. But if we think about numbers in 2020, the annual capacity additions increased by 45%. So we are talking about 280 gigas globally of new capacity only in 2020. And this is something normal. I think we should start thinking that these great numbers in terms of new capacity will be something normal in 21, 22, 23 globally, and it includes Latin America as well and the Caribbean. Solar PV will remain as the lead technology, and the main reason we will see it in the next slide. And also, I think that the capacity additions will increase for 90% in terms of wind. That increase is bigger. Nevertheless, we need to think that the installed capacity for solar at the moment is more than for wind. Perhaps in 2020, the additions were 90% more for wind, but in 21, 22, I think the increase will be a bit more moderate. I think that this is something coming from the fact that everything is cheaper. When I started again 12 years ago, I remember that renewable energy was not cheap enough. It was cheaper to build combined cycles, thermal plants, cogeneration plants, conventional power generation plant. Today, we can see how the costs has been reduced massively. Here I share with you more or less the numbers, which I find very interesting to understand why suddenly everybody speaks about renewable energy. One of the main drivers for the accelerated rollout of technologies is the sharp declines in costs. If we think about PV solar, since 2010, the average costs fallen by 10%. We can see China as the main manufacturer of solar technology. And this is not only because it's a great opportunity for them as a business case, but also because they believe that solar and renewable energy is the future. And we can see that China is by far the first country in terms of new capacity, new additions to the grid. Solar, as you can see in the last 10 years, has reduced the cost by 82%. It also includes the thermosolar plants and the concentrating solar power in general. But the reduction for onshore wind is also substantial. We're talking about 37, 38% in 10 years. We see that some big manufacturers are merging. Some others are new in the market, coming from China mainly, but the expertise of the main players remain unaltered. But then we are here to talk about Latin America and the Caribbean. So basically what is going on in the region? Latin America, since I joined EGCube as underwriter, has been always a business case scenario because we can see a huge potential in the region. And we actually have some very good examples about how successful renewable energy can be in the countries. Uruguay, Costa Rica, both countries are able to produce almost 100% capacity to cover the demand. But for some other countries, unfortunately, it's not the case. Now I can see more and more opportunities coming from countries like Colombia, for example. It was something new for me last year. But basically, I think it's in the north part of Colombia, the wind is perfect for this sort of technology. If we think about Mexico or Chile, basically they have the best possible sunlight in the world. But there are some other countries like Peru or Ecuador, where actually this sort of technology, PV solar, wind, can be also an extraordinary source of power. Recently, there was a very good news coming from governments in the region. Actually, most of them in Latin America has decided to set goals for the next 30 years. As you can see in this slide, they expect to grow by a factor of 40% by 2050. And they're planning to install around 280 gigas in the coming years. So this is very good news, not only for the development of these countries, because renewable energy is key to meet their goals of development, but also for the rest of the industries, because this industry is connected to many others. And actually, it will give the countries employees, and also ensure it will make possible that the situation will improve massively. So, well, we've been talking about numbers, but it's time to talk about insurance, because we are professionals and we know that there is a huge opportunity over there. We are expecting to receive inquiries from our clients, and actually we need to be ready to confirm what they have to do to cover all the potentials risks they will be facing for these new projects. Here, this is what I see as underwriter. There are many other lines of business before, but this is, from my experience, what I can see as a renewable energy underwriter. Let's say that basically this cover since the first piece of machine is moved from the factory to the project site, and then the contractors start building the insured project. So here we can see the marine transit, inland transit, and delay in startup, something critical to make sure that all the equipment is coming to the project site and is coming in good conditions and is stored in very good conditions. Then we will see the construction, the erection of the project. Then we need to think about the liability exposure of this project as well. Once the project is completed, we will have to think of the operational risks exposure, the operational TPL as well, and some other potential risks that we have to cover. So I think it's critical to understand all the process, as well as how to make sure that each and every single policy match each other to make sure that there are no gaps of coverage. For example, let's start by thinking about the marine inland transit and DSU. I think 50-50 clause, a standard clause, is a good example to think how to move from one policy to the next one. The 50-50 clause is making sure that, okay, a set of blades are storage on site, the inland transit was good, everything seems to be right, but suddenly when the contractor goes and see the equipment, there is something wrong. Perhaps it's too late about thinking who is responsible. And the best way is to spread the responsibility between the two policies. We have to make sure that the same clause applies to both policies. And the language, the wording of the clause is more or less the same, just to avoid that suddenly one policy is covering the 50%, but the other refuse to pay anything. We think about the constructional risks and the ALOP. Well, it's quite common when you see that big manufacturers offer the principal, the client, the possibility to insure the erection of the turbines, or maybe the possibility to install some of the main equipment of the project. Okay, it's good. The principal has the right to decide, okay, I want to buy this from the manufacturer. But what about if they also want to buy advance loss of profit for this equipment? How we can think about having a product matching something else offered by the manufacturer? Well, this is possible because we have the possibility to create a contingent policy to the manufacturer's policy, which will trigger the advanced loss of profit if something goes wrong in the turbines. But what about the balance of plant? I mean, all the civil works, the transformers, well, we can still cover in these assets on a primary basis. And then we also have a trigger to the advanced loss of profit. This is quite common, but the fact that we need to be aware of all the things that have been agreed contractually is very, very important. Let's go to, I don't know, the fact that we also have to insure the contractors and subcontractors. Every year I receive plenty of new projects, and has become a standard to request that absolutely everybody, contractors, subcontractors, and whoever goes to the project has to be insured. Well, this is not something good for the principal, necessarily good. We need to understand how the contract has been agreed between the principal and all parties involved in the project. So again, as a broker or insurance advisor, we have to make sure that we understand all the contractual obligations of our client. Because if there is no responsibility to insure a contractor or subcontractor, it's better not to include them. Because if you buy an insurance policy, basically you want to cover yourself. But if there is no need, don't cover anybody else, because at the end, it will be your policy who will be covering each and every single loss. And maybe you are not responsible for such damages to the property, someone else. If someone else is responsible, then make sure that person who is involved in your project has an insurance policy as well. And this is why we can think of the contractual construction liability. Sorry. If someone else is coming to your site, make sure that he's insured. If he is conducting some kind of work, let's make sure these works are covered just in case something wrong happens to your property. Again, we need to look very careful at what has been agreed in the contract. When there is this move from the construction to the operational risk, okay, first question, is the entire project moving from construction to operation? It will come from construction to operation little by little. Well, this is something that sometimes happens, especially for wind projects. We have multiple sites, multiple wind farm turbines, and there are projects who, as soon as one turbine is available, they can start operating. But the rest of the project is still under construction. So do I have to include an extension of cover for this operational risk? Yes, this is something that we can think of. But what about if the entire project is completed, they reach the commercial operational date, and then we move from construction to operation at once? Well, in this case, there are also something that we need to think of, is the maintenance clause in the construction policy. It's not something rare to see losses in the first year operation, that when the loss adjuster goes and explore the damage, it's clear that the main cause is coming from the construction. I mean, let's think about a mistake during construction. Little by little is causing damage to the property, but it takes, I don't know, weeks to finally create a real damage to the property. Well, this has to be covered under the construction policy. So how many different extended visit or guarantee extensions clause we have? Well, there are multiple, but we need to make sure that the one we choose for our client is the best one for themselves as well. Because if suddenly I'm the insurer for the operating or risks policy, and I see that the reason why I've got a loss is because someone else did something wrong in the past, and then I try to push the claim to the construction policy, but this construction policy has no maintenance clause, then we are creating an issue for our client. The operational liability is something that is quite important, especially in terms of contractors who are coming to the property and are doing some operation and maintenance works. They are the ones who contractually agree something with the insured, with the principal, which is the OEM contract. There are OEM contracts which maybe cover only the preventive maintenance, There are some others who work partially the corrective, and there are full OEM contracts covering absolutely everything, but there are some others who only cover some main components, but there are some others who are not included. Well, this is very, very important information as well. And this is something that each and every single insurer will ask for. They want to understand what is the scope of cover of coming from the OEM contract, because the policy will act as a contingent cover for the client. And therefore, if the main components are covered, okay, I will be responsible for the BI, but then I need to make sure that my policy cover these components in this property section. Today, we also have some other extensions of cover. Some of them were typically included within the property section, like terrorism and strike real civil commotion. But as a result of losses happening because of these extensions of cover, the insurers have decided to split the responsibility of insuring this sort of extensions. There are teams within the insurance companies who are specialized in terrorism and strike real civil commotion. And then most of the company has decided to separate the responsibility to grant cover for these risks. There have been cases, especially for strike real civil commotion causing damages to renewable energy projects. Terrorism, well, it depends on what the definition of terrorism is, how it affects. There are some definitions with some inclusions about criminal activity. Well, again, we need to think of the location of the project and what the exposure is. And also, we need to think about any potential requirement coming from the financial parties. Cyber, for example, is a trading topic now. We think that is a very low risk at the moment for these sort of projects. Nevertheless, we think that the situation will change in the future, because we have seen some damages, minor damages, because there have been some attacks to offshore facilities. And then, well, suddenly you stop your operations stop because you receive a cyber attack, and it takes a period of time to recover the control over the project. So it's time that you cannot produce any energy. It's not a property damage. Nevertheless, it gives rise to BI. So at the moment, well, we can see all these exclusion clauses attaching to each and every single policy, clauses that pretend not to cover anything related to cyber. I can confirm that there are specific products for power generation plants, including renewable energy. There are some other products like parametrics. I can confirm that I've met clients who have reported not very good numbers because there have been lack of wind or even lack of solar, lack of sun, sorry. And basically, these sort of projects are not very an insurance product, are a bit different. So I think it's time to explore the way to sell it to the clients, to make it understandable for them. So here in this slide, I'm going to explain some other problems, some other factors that there are risks to take into consideration.
Sergio.
See?
Sorry, we have a couple of questions. Do you want to address them now, or do you want to wait until the end?
Sorry, I didn't see there are questions
okay.
already. I'm very happy about that, because I was expecting not to receive anything.
There you go, two already. So you want me to read them out loud for everybody?
Yes,
I read them?
yeah, absolutely. So, yeah.
The first one: how are the UN SDGs forcing the renewable energy projects increase? So the United Nations standards, SDGs, I don't know what it stands for, but it's probably something related to the renewable energy mandates or the changes in the renewable energy that the UN is in place. Oh, There you go. Thank you. Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you.
Okay.
The acronym for SDGs. Thanks. So, how are the UN Sustainable Development Goals forcing the renewable energy projects increase? That's the first question we got.
Okay. Well, it's a good one, and it's not an easy one. Well, I think I can use the example of the European Union at the moment, where basically, as an example, and probably this is something you are not aware of, but all the funds received from each and every single country to fight against the impact of the COVID situation has to be used to increase and to promote renewable energy technology in the countries, because they understand that that's the way to reduce the CO2. Okay, so this is something that is good for the goals set by these institutions and administrations, but also because it will reduce as well the demand of some other energy sources like oil and gas. So basically, the renewable energy is very linked to governments and basically to auctions. I mean, basically something that depends on what your country thinks is the best, how they want to promote it. So as I tried to explain before with Latin America, it's very important that this is promoted by governments, because they also, the governments, have the obligation to be more sustainable. So hopefully I've been able to respond in part the question.
I think so, Sergio. And you did mention Brazil and Chile as two of the Latin American countries that have an effort to increase their production on alternative energy, renewable
Yeah,
energies. Is that correct?
Brazil is by far the lead country in the region. I mean,
Hmm.
the installed capacity at the moment is amazing in the country, and they keep building more and more projects. It's been like this for the last 15 years, and everything seems to be in the same way for the coming years as well. Chile, they started very strongly to install new capacity, and they've set new goals for the next years. So basically, everything seems to be, everything looks like these two countries will lead the development in the region for the coming years. But the problem is that for most of the countries in the region, everything is based on promises. I mean, there is nothing confirmed yet, like a business plan of development. So there is a clear intention of development, but there is still not a guide to understand how they will make it possible. So Chile, this is why I think Chile and Brazil will lead the change. But well, we hope that Argentina, for example, will continue the strategy they set a few years ago, and some other countries will start the process very soon.
Thank you. So the other question we have here is from Juan Guzman, and it reads, are there any possible gaps to be aware of regarding liabilities between construction and operational phases?
Well, well, the best way to think about it is the claims made on the current basis. With it happens every time you move from one policy to another. So basically, if there is an occurrence on a policy during construction, the policy to be acquired during operations should be on the same basis. And the same with claims made. And the reason is simple. I mean, maybe there is something that happens during construction that suddenly is discovered during operation, and this is why I think is important to keep it in mind. Um, about to grant, I don't know, to grant cover, liability from one section to another, I don't really think it's a big issue for the client. It's more important how you manage to allocate responsibilities on contractors, subcontractors, advisors, people who are coming to your side. Contractually, you need to be very, very good at covering yourself by telling the others to be insured. Okay, that's for me the main aspect about liability during for renewable energy.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your questions. So yes, I was about to talk about these key areas that I think affect the way the way an insurer should think of, offering terms or looking at the risk or assess the risk, a new risk, because of the evolution we talked about before, and also not also about the evolution, but how things are moving forward in terms of insurance. So contractors and subcontractor errors. Before I mention it, the importance to know if it is compulsory to include them in your policy. But this is something I already mentioned, and I want to show you another example of why this is a key area to understand. If we think about a country who is going to install gigas in the next 1, 2, 3 years, there is no country with multiple experience and notable contractors and subcontractors. The best ones are going to build up the first projects, and suddenly some other contractors with no experience will start building this sort of projects. Obviously, this can give rise to negligence problems, coming from them. And I think it's because of the experience. We've seen countries like in Argentina where the installed capacity in a few years was amazing, but I always had the concern about the experience from contractors over there. Every time I received a project, I wanted to make sure I knew the contractors involved. And also I wanted to be very restrictive in the way I granted cover for subcontractors, because it's not only about the well-known name of the contractor, but who the contractor will employ to carry out some other activities. Because, for example, me as a principal, I can go to a very well-known contractor. I pay him a very good money to develop my project, but they are allowed to go to somewhere else and say, okay, here is the project, it's up to you. So basically, this is something that is becoming a serious issue. I can see that terms and conditions are more restrictive to include them. Most of the projects insist a lot on having a clear picture of who is involved and the experience of these companies. This also affects the components which are going to be installed. As I mentioned it before, in wind turbines, in 10 years, from 1 mega to 6 megas. Towers are very big. Blades are 3-4 times bigger. Rotors, gearboxes, everything is much bigger. This means that basically this is developing very quickly. So there is no time to test them, which means that basically these turbines or new equipment cannot be certified by a third-party firm, which actually confirms that everything is fine with this equipment. If it is not certified, the guarantee is not something that will calm the concerns of the insurers. And if the demand is very high, then you want to start building very quickly and a huge amount of components. As a result, there are many material defects, and then is when the extension of cover of your policy can be a real nightmare, because you can be covering the leg 3, for example, with a very large serious loss clause. One single claim can be millions and millions. Political and policy and regulatory. This is something very important as well. Every country is different. There are plenty of companies who agree contracts on a PPA basis, power purchasing agreement basis. There are some other countries where the government is involved and they set a methodology to pay the price for the electricity generated by these plants. Well, once again, it's very important that you as an insurer or broker understand how the PPA works, because if you understand it well, you will be able to explain it well, and you will make sure that your policy cover the BAI or loss of revenue in the best possible way. Severe weather impact. This is something as well very important. Um, we see that more and more projects are built in areas where the exposure is massive. I give you the example of Baja California and Mexico, for example. I've seen total losses for solar plants in Baja California, but every year you see more and more plants to be built over there. Why? Because it's convenient for developers. And therefore, if it is convenient, sometimes they want to take the risk of the location. An insurer has to be ready to measure the risk as well. It happens in Oaxaca, for example, in Mexico, where the wind is extraordinary for the wind industry. There are plenty of wind farms, but the earthquake exposure is massive. And the same with the Caribbean, an amazing place to build up solar plants, but where it's very common to have windstorm seasons every year, which actually affects one or two single countries. The equipment is bigger and also much more expensive. A few years ago, one blade or set of blades cost 1 million. Now we are talking about millions. You only need one crane to install them. Today, there are turbines who actually need 2 or 3 cranes to install them. So basically, a single component of a massive, a single component of a massive wind turbine is very expensive. So one claim means that you lose all the money. Storage and distribution risks. This is something very important. I think it's quite important because the industry, I believe there will be a revolution in the energy industry with the renewable energy based on the storage systems. I mean, the batteries are the future. The way you can store your power generated by solar plants is something that is quite good, because actually this is the way you can also transfer them from one point to another by distribution lines. So this is something that everybody in the insurance market is looking at very carefully, and I think will be the future. And finally, the new emerging risks. I mean, every year there is something new. There is something new to think of, because we have talked about cyber, but we also have the lack of wind and solar, as I mentioned it before, or maybe there is a new technology like the hydrogen, or a new evolution in tidal waves or offshore risks. So I think it's quite important to be proactive. It's quite important to look at each and every single project very carefully, because that's the way you get the knowledge, and that's the way you can measure the risk and you can see the performance. We write some of the largest programs in renewables. The way we do it is sometimes because it's the best way to get information about how things move forward. And thinking about new clauses to attach to the policy wording, thinking about what's going on with this lightning protection system, why it's failing, keeping in touch with advisors with some other markets is crucial. I think is very important. And finally, well, I would like to speak about us, because obviously it's a good opportunity to share our experience with you. We've been in the insurance market for 25 years. We have an experience of more than 100 gigas installed capacity insured. We have paid more than 650 millions in claims, which means tons of claims. So I think we are a very, very experienced market. And I think that we are in a position that we have a very good knowledge. Nevertheless, as I try to explain, every year is different. Every year things are changing, and this is why we need to keep, in the loop to see how it develops and what's the best way to cover everything. And well, it's been 50 minutes of my presentation. I thought that it would be shorter, but yeah, well, it's time to ask for more questions if I'm lucky enough.
Yeah, so Sergio, we have a couple more questions already. One, I'm sure you're gonna like because it's actually asking is if we can insure renewable energy risk directly with G Cube Underwriter, or as a Latin broker, or is it a London broker necessary?
No, 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 no. It's not necessary a London broker. GCube's life has changed last year because we are now a fully owned company of Tokyo Marine Houston Casualty. We also operate at Lloyd's as a syndicate under the Tokyo Marine Houston Casualty stamp. But we remain as a independent company who can work with brokers overseas. I mean, the way we usually operate in Latin America is as a reinsurer. But if there is a demand from a retail broker in the region, we can also use our network to provide them with solutions. So the answer to that is no. Actually, I'm based in Spain. We decided to start operations here in Spain to actually be able to cover the demand coming from Latin America because of my wonderful language skills.
Hmm.
So in that sense, to all brokers, if they want to contact us, we will be very pleased to review their requirements.
Very good. Thank you. And there is one more question, which is it says property damage is more related to fire or explosion, sorry, fire explosion or to electronic equipment. This question refers to solar power
Fire
generated.
is purely in renewable energy. If we think about wind, is the main reason is because there has been a electrical failure or mechanical breakdown.
Yeah, they're talking about solar on the
Ah,
solar
solar
farms.
is
Yeah.
the same because actually, except for wildfire, okay,
Mhm.
when there are some wildfires, um, this is always coming from electrical failure in the inverters and transformers. So I've never seen a fire coming from a different reason because the exposure to fire, if it's not caused by electrical failure, is something that is very, very strange and weird.
Very good. I think those are the questions we've got so far. If anybody has any more questions, please put them on the chat. We'll try to answer them as they come. Sergio, it, in you were just saying that you're based in well in Spain right now. Would you mind just typing in or sharing your contact details so that people can get in touch with you? So
Absolutely.
if you type them down, I'm sure people will be able to send you any comments, questions, or
Absolutely. Yeah.
maybe some business down your way, which is never a bad thing.
One is that I managed the presentation, but I don't know how to skip from it. So okay. So
You got another question coming up. I'll read it to you, and it says, "What is the minimum premium for your share, if it is any? Is there share?"
well, we have things has changed in the insurance market as well. As you know, it's harder and we decided to look at operations where the revenue is no less than 50,000 USD dollars. But I never like talking about this because it depends on the pipeline. It depends on the relationship we can have with the broker or the client. There are projects from clients of ours which are very, very small, but we insure and the premium is less than 50K. But if we operate as a reinsurer, usually we look at 50K. But again, it depends on some other factors, especially
Mhm.
when we start, having a relationship with a broker. We understand that there are plenty of new opportunities with a premium lower than that.
Good.
So I'm unable to share to stop sharing this. Well, to everyone, my my contact details, well, if you can share the presentation with the
Yeah, we
people
will.
attending.
We will
My
do that.
email address is like my name, Sergio, dot Guisado Mateo, as my family names, at gcube/insurance.com.
Guisado
So
Mateo, as if it was one word or with a
yes.
hyphen.
Actually, yeah, because Tokyo Marine is very advanced. They make sure that if whoever writes my name in multiple ways, I receive the email. But yeah, it's like that. So if you can share my contact details with everybody. If not, you
Sure.
can find me in LinkedIn, and you can contact me in LinkedIn, and I will be pleased to answer your questions. I can share with you my contact details. And yes, hopefully I can keep in touch with everybody joining today's presentation.
Very good. Good. We don't have any more questions, Sergio, and I think it was a brilliant presentation. Thank you so much for your time. And again, for everybody else, we have in a couple of weeks the next session on marine cargo coming up. Thanks for joining us, and look forward to speaking to all of you soon. Sergio, one more time.
Thank you.